राम 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 सीता राम राम राम,
हरे राम 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 सीता राम राम राम,
हरे राम 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 सीता राम राम,
राम 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 सीता राम राम राम,
हरे 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 राम 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 सीता राम राम राम,
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम,
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम,
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम,
सीता राम राम राम,
सीता राम राम राम।
सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, बोलो भाई सब संतन की
जय।
श्री राम जय जय राम, लाउडली श्री राम जय जय राम,
श्री राम जय जय राम,
श्री राम जय जय राम,
राम जय जय राम,
श्री 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 राम जय जय राम,
राम जय जय राम,
श्री राम जय जय राम,
राम जय जय राम,
श्री 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 राम जय जय राम,
जय जय राम,
जय जय राम,
जय जय राम,
जय जय राम।
श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की पवन सुत हनुमान की
जय,
बोलो भाई सब संतन की, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की।
Hari Om everyone. Hope and pray that all of you are doing well. Thank you all for joining. Hope you are all doing well. Today we will not be joined by Hari Chaitanya. He is feeling a little weak, so he's taking rest. We will continue with Brahmacharini Divya, first presenting it, and then I will be presenting it. And I'll make the invocation and the Tathobodha shlokas. Then I'll give it to Divya. So let's begin. सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते. We have seen till the 56th one. So 57th and 58th today. atadvyāvṛttirūpeṇa vedāntairlakṣyate'dvayam akhaṇḍānandamekaṃ yat tadbrahmetyavadhārayet akhaṇḍānandarūpasya tasyānandalavāśritāḥ brahmādyāstāratamyena bhavantyānandino'khilāḥ. These are the two shlokas, and now the floor is.
So verse 57 nears the end, where we start to see the phrase ātmabodha. So again, we're continuing with the thought process of understanding the glory of realization, almost like phala at this point, but it never deviates from the logical lines of thinking we've been seeing throughout atmabodha. So etat brahma iti avadharayet, realize that Brahman, how atadvyāvṛttirūpeṇa, by the process of negation of what is not, lakṣyate vedāntaihi, as indicated by the Vedas, ekam advayam akhaṇḍānandam. So, to begin with, the very first process of approaching Brahman is through the process of negation, to find out what is not and assert what is. It's a classical two-step dance that we have to do to approach Brahman. And the reason because we have to go through this process is because we cannot directly reach Brahman, because it's not an object of cognition. This is an important point that comes up again, no Brahman, no Brahman. But again, it's a reminder that our usual way of knowing is to have the subject, the object, and the verb that goes in between. Experiencer, experienced, and experiencing. And in this case, the object, verb, and subject are all one entity. So it flips our usual way of knowing on its head. And so we're left, okay, then what do I do? So we have to eliminate all of the perceptions, experiences, any layers that we encounter, and eliminate those that are not Brahman as indicated by the Shastras. And it is important that this word is given, lakṣyate vedāntaihi, because this rubric or this line of thinking has to come from the Vedas and the Shastras, because it is the only pramana that we have to follow. When we go back to how we normally process information, everything we know about the world is through these senses. And we composite all the data input and make this construct of the world. And that is, my indriyas become my pramana for that world outside. But because we have now collapsed the subject and object as being the same, what is now the method and the means for actually knowing? Shastras become our pramana. So there are very key phrases that we will see over and over and over again, and they're not just given because it's a descriptive literary style of expressing it. This is almost like a mathematical axiom that's given, meaning that these are statements regarded as being established and the truth, self-evident truth that's being given. It is based on this that we develop every other approach that we can find, but we have to hold on to these couple phrases because they establish the truth. And we see many phrases like Brahman is Sat Chit Ananda. And in this verse, we see this is Ekam Advayam, Akhanda Anandam. So these are classical phrases that are like stones for us that we can stand on. There are no ifs and buts or contradictions with these statements. Using them, the first process is the process of negation. So let's take a look at the two stones that were given in this verse: Ekam, Advayam, and Akhanda Anandam. Akhanda Anandam we might come to a little bit, but I wanted to include it because it flows into that idea. We want to eliminate the things that are not limited. See, the akhanda is the word that I'm going off of, something that is not limited. And how can it not be limited? Because it is that one without a second. There's no second thing to limit it in time or space or in any form. So akhanda is my key phrase. And from that akhanda, logically, I can say that anything that changes is limited. Anything that is riddled with, and that change leads to sorrow. So that change means I'm looking for something that is permanent, something that is expansive and pervasive. So it's very important. You see how like a lot of logic can come out of that one word akhanda and supported by ekam advayam. So with that, let's go ahead through this negation process. We can usually in the beginning of any text, we go through ātmabodha and the prakarana granthas. They always go through a process of evaluating what makes up the world and what makes up my body. And we have the 5 koshas, the 3 states, the pancha mahabhuta, the sattva, rajas, tamas qualities. That is the scientific way of analyzing what am I made of and what is the world made of. Not to justify its existence. Because we come back to this process. When I analyze each of these layers, I realize that the very nature of that layer is khanda. It is impermanent. It is constantly changing. So that analysis is only done to get us to the stage of negation. So the body. We see in Bhaja Govindam as well, and in the beginning of chapter 2, where we say that the body just constantly changes. It goes from a baby to a youth to an adult to old age. What remains the same? Nothing. And it, in fact, go further, saying that once you drop this body and take on the next one, it's just like changing clothes. That change is constant throughout even the physical body. The mental layers as well. Emotions are constantly in flux. One emotion limits the other because there's multiplicity within our mind. Thoughts, ideas, they're all limited. And because of that unsteadiness, the constant impermanence that is naturally in those layers, it cannot be what I'm seeking. So I eliminate that. This is when we start to talk about, now that I understand this, what do I do about it? And so we see statements like, now transcend the mind and intellect, no longer identify with them. So that is the action with it. But it's important to remember that when we separate from it, disidentify it from them, and transcend them, it doesn't mean that these equipments just go away and disappear. We are no longer identified and functioning as them. But I'm able to witness it as if it's an objective thing. It is what it is. That statement, that level in which we evolve to is this result of the process of negation. But then we're left with what then? We've done process of negation. Are we left with zero-ness? Are we left with nothingness? No. It is why akhanda is immediately followed by the word ananda. That it is the pure state of consciousness that is experienced assertively as bliss. So we're not left in that void. And so when we start to look at this state of bliss, and say, oh, this is the most magnanimous, blissful state we can be in, you should achieve for it. This is what we've been striving for in our entire life, but it doesn't promise the world doesn't promise this to us. Reach that highest state, then you'll get what you've been looking for. And so we've heard this over and over again, but for us, our current experience is just sukha through the world outside. It's a dependent, limited, temporary happiness. And so when they speak of that bliss, exactly how ananda is it? And so that leads to that next verse of verse number 58. Akhilaha brahmādyāha, meaning that all that has been created, starting from Brahmaji, including all the deities, etc., in comparison to what they're experiencing of that Brahman, so tasya akhaṇḍānandarūpasya tāratamyena, meaning that unbroken bliss that we were speaking of, that is of the nature of Brahman, if we add up all of the happiness experienced by Brahma, all the deities and everything else added up, it is only just a small portion. Ananda lava ashritaha bhavantyānandino'khilāḥ. That entire summation is just dependent on a particle of bliss compared to that bliss that we're speaking of, which is the nature of Brahman itself. So ordinarily, students that come across these statements, it's difficult to wrap our minds around exactly how much bliss are we talking about when we say Brahma Ananda. So again, we're used to that dependency, that I need to be there, the object needs to be there, there needs to be a certain connection. If there's a different connection, I have unhappiness. Like if I am sick and then I end up having ice cream, then I'm going to continue to be sick. That's not enjoying ice cream properly, even if the both are there. And I continually go through cycles that I attain what I don't have, then have a momentary relief and then enjoy it, and then it perishes. Either I change, the object change, or the connection changes, and then immediately that sukha is broken. And so we constantly go through the cycle over and over and over again, and this is all we know. So when you say that, when the Shastras say that the summation of all this bliss that we have in comparison is just a fractional part, it's hard to comprehend that. So if we look at any statisticians or economic student that wants to give us a way of describing something, they use the technique of scaling. Like, okay, if this is 1 unit of happiness, then this other thing will give us 10 times that. Then compile that together, and that gives us, the third object gives us 10 times even more. It's a way of scaling. We do that even with miles, right? It's 100 light years away. What do you mean by that? Okay, take us to the end of the street. How fast do you get there? And then you keep expanding and say, now the light that has to travel between the moon all the way to that star takes that many years. Even in that definition of a light year, it's all about scaling, just to get our mind to start to comprehend the vastness of that measurement. So in Taittiriya Upanishad and in this verse as well, there's that technique used again. That if we have this much experience as a human being, and let's say that human being did a lot of papa, then there's limited amount of joys in between, but it's followed by enough consequences that never lasts. Then compare it to someone who is following dharmic paths. It may hurt now, but it has benefits later. And you graduate to the next loka, and you gather punya. Then you elevate from portfolio to portfolio, world to world, and you start working your way up the punya worlds, all the way up to even becoming Brahmaji himself in that particular cycle. If we were to add up the sukha experienced by Brahmaji himself and added all of the sukhas of all of the jivas in all of time and put it together, then it is only just a particle of that bliss. Because again, we're not actually trying to measure that ananda. It's a way for our minds to realize that this is beyond measure. Because even summing it all up is just summing up limited entities. The very nature is limited. This is the nature of unlimitedness because it is the one and only. So these two verses bring us to that sadhaka who has already developed that mindset, has come, listened to the shastras, have now sit down and going through the mananam process, saying that, let me now apply these statements as fact given by shastras. Let me use that to eliminate all the things that are not it, then assert what it actually is, and then come to establish it to realize and experience that bliss as my own subjective experience. So it's a nice rounded summary of what we've been learning all through this text. So with that, Swamiji, that's all I have.
Thank you, Divya. Okay, this is not Bhagavad Gita, so let me just take that out. Okay. In the last few shlokas, Bhagavan Bhashyakara is trying to give us tat brahma iti avadhārayet. Come to the assertion of understanding that this Brahman is my true nature. Who is this Brahman? So in the last shloka we saw Purnam Satchidanandam Advayam Anantam Nityam Ekam. Each word points to an amazing meditative pointer. Last week when I was telling, or last time when we sat for the class, when I was telling, just recapping from there, Advaya means Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata Bheda Rahita. Oh my God, what are these Sanskrit terms? Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata Bheda. Sajatiya. Within one category of classification, there can be differences. Like when we say Homo sapiens is one classification. Within the Homo sapiens, we can have subclassifications like men and women. Or we can have the other classification like those who are dark skinned, those who are white skinned, those who are brown skinned, based on the skin color. Asian, Caucasian. So you have these classifications. This is the Sajatiya, same jati, same classification. Within that you can find the differences. Sajatiya. Vijatiya, there is, say flora and fauna. There are plant kingdom and there is animal kingdom. And these two are distinctly separate. The plant kingdom doesn't move, whereas the other species, we all move. Otherwise, it will be difficult, right? I sow the seeds here and somebody else, somewhere, some other field, it starts growing. Then it is quite a challenge. We would have found a solution for that also, but still. But whereas animals or other species, we move. That is one way to look at vijatiya. Vijatiya, they are other than the same jati. So sajatiya, vijatiya. Then comes swagata bheda. Swagata bheda, say we classify, when there are so many classifications that run into my mind right now, but let me make it very simple. When I say this body, now within this system, there is a head, the mid-torso and the lower limbs. Within the head again, there are ears, eyes, then the nose, then the mouth. Within the mouth again, there is the teeth, the tongue, the inner tongue and the jaw. There's so many different parts. Now when we say Brahman is Advaya, one without a second, there is no such classification or categorization, whether it is Sajatiya or Vijatiya or Swagata Bheda. There are no parts within Brahman. Swagata. There is nothing other than Brahman, so there is no Vijatiya. And Swagata, Sajatiya, there is nothing like there are 2-3 Brahmans and they are all of the same kind. No, there is no such. This assertion that it is Advaya Tattva, only Advaita-Vedanta can assert. Whether it is Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, Nimbarka, Gaudiya within the dharmic fold, or the out of the dharmic fold, the Abrahamic religions, where they say that there is God, there is that, whether you call it as Narayana or Shiva or Devi, Shakti, whatever you call it. And then this is Dvaita. Dvaita meaning this is separate other than it. The moment you say it is other than that, what happens? It is Vijatiya. Right? It is other than that Brahman, other than that Paramatma. The moment you say there is something other than that Paramatma, that Paramatma becomes limited because there is Vijatiya dosha. There is something other than that Brahman, that Paramatma, that which exists. The moment you say that there is something that which exists other than that Paramatma, that which exists, there cannot be two existences. We go back to the same old logic which we introduced in the very beginning. If this surface is existence and I am touching existence all over, right? If I am touching something outside of existence, what am I touching? That which is not existence. Non-existent. Can you actually experience and touch non-existent? It's impossible. So anything that which is other than existence, it has to be non-existent. And you clearly state that that Paramatma is something different and this Jagat and the Jiva are something different. The moment you say different, that this also exists, that also exists, there cannot be two existences. How does Advaita handle this? Advaita says, Bahusyam praja yeyeti satapotapyata satapastaptva idagam asrujata. This comes in again Taittiriya Upanishad. that he created this creation as an expansion and an extension of his own nature. But how do we perceive it? We don't perceive it as Paramatma. We perceive it as otherness. That otherness that we perceive is called deluded perception. Therefore, when we try to prove that this world is mithya, we are not trying to say that what you perceive is mithya. Yes, what you perceive is an experience, but you are perceiving of that which is just a projected reality. Can you not perceive the projected reality? Yes, you can. Just because you are perceiving a projected reality, it doesn't make it real. Come again, Swamiji, that was too much of Vedanta in just one sentence. Can you just explain that again? Let me take an example. If in theater, there is a particular scene of that movie where there is a little baby in a burning house, and nobody is willing to jump in and save that kid. The roof is collapsing. The burning wood is falling in. It just fell right next to that kid. Nobody is still moving. You sitting in the audience suddenly rush with a bucket full of water and throw on the screen. Does it make sense? What you are seeing appears real. We are not saying that you are not seeing it. When we say it is unreal, what are we saying? That which you are seeing is only of the nature of an appearance. It can happen only in the status of projected reality. Even that when negated, what remains is that onto which this is being projected, which is the substratum, which is Brahma Chaitanyam, Paramatma Tattvam. And then we went in to see that it is Advayam Anantam. Anantam, unending. There is no end to it. End can be ascertained only if there is a beginning. That which does not even have a beginning, how can it have an end? Therefore, it is Nityam. Nityam, eternal, always existing. And we don't even say that it is nothing like it. No. The moment you say there is nothing like it, that means there is something, there are things that are other than it, and nothing is matching up to it. We say one without a second. One without a second, there is nothing other than it at all. Ekam. Now such one, how does one experience? Because everything that is experienced, cognized, is a part of this projected reality. Isn't it? If everything is a part of this projected reality, how come that this Brahman is not something of that same aspect? So he says, atadvyāvṛttirūpeṇa vedāntairlakṣyate'dvayam. Atadvyāvṛttirūpeṇa. With the vritti rupa. Now what is the vritti rupa? The thought pattern, wherein anything that which exists as other than that Brahman is negated. Neti neti iti vakyena. This comes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Neti neti iti vakyena. It is ascertained that it is not real. Atadvyāvṛttirūpeṇa. And who ascertains this? Kevalam Vedanta Vakyaihi eva. Only Vedanta Vichara presents this topic, this clarity. There is no other tattva that can ever come close to this assertion. So there are people who say, what about other religions? Will they get the same realization? None of them are talking about this tattva with this precision. And anyway, all the other, that which they are talking about that God is up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. We are something other than that, whether it is in the dharmic fold or whether it is outside of the dharmic fold. And what are they ascertaining? That there are two sattas. There are two realities. One is that reality and this reality. One existence and two existence. The moment you say existence, there cannot be two existence. There can only be one existence. If that is existence, then this is non-existent, which is what Vedanta is saying. If you say this non-existent, then how am I seeing? You are seeing it as a projected reality. Going back to the same logic again, connecting it there. It's only Vedanta becomes the Pramana Shastra. Advaita-Vedanta alone is the Pramana Shastra. Pramana means what? Because Hindi, there is a confusion. इसका क्या प्रमाण है? भारत जानना चाहता है कि इसका क्या प्रमाण है? Praman in Hindi means proof, which is a derivative of the original meaning, which is what we use in Sanskritam. Pramana means the right means of knowledge. Therefore, when people bring some Western thought saying, Swamiji, this book is so beautiful, it looks like Vedanta, it can only look like Vedanta. It is peda made out of ricotta cheese versus made after 5 hours of sitting and doing. There is obviously a difference. There cannot be both same. एक नकली नकली होता है, असली असली होता है. It may come close to, but they never cross. And where is it that it crosses? It is in this Vedanta. And what does it do? It establishes lakṣyate'dvayam. To our cognition, to our understanding, what does it reveal? That when you negate everything, every minutest detail, what remains is just that conscious principle. Having indirectly pointed out at that conscious principle, even Advaita Vedanta withdraws. Yatra shastraha ashastraha bhavanti. And this boldness to say that Veda becomes Aveda, Shastra becomes a Shastra, that there is no requirement of it anymore, only in our scriptures. No other scripture have that dare to say that, otherwise they'll keep holding on to say, Nahi, this is written in the book, therefore you should believe it. Thou shall not challenge it. If you shall be challenging it, thou shall be eliminated. No. Shastra api, Shastra also becomes a Shastra. It becomes pointless, having pointed it. Like supposing in a cricket field, there is an umpire, there are 11 fielders, one of them is a wicket keeper, one of them is a bowler, there are 2 batsmen, and there is Jagat. There is that 40,000, 50,000 onlookers watching it. Game is done, the onlookers have gone, the cricket teams have gone, only the umpire is standing. Now that fellow will not be referred to as umpire also. All the pointers are dropped. Why? The pointer makes sense only when there is a team playing. When the teams are also not playing, when everything is withdrawn, who is left? Kevalam, that Manava alone is left. There are no more titles to that either. Similarly, there is only the Shuddha Chaitanya, and that is ascertained by this Shastra. Advayam. And how is this Advayam? Akhaṇḍānandam ekam. We will take the Akhanda, this particular shloka, and Anandam we will discuss in the next shloka, because that is a complete description of that Ananda only. All that which is this projected reality, that which we call as Jagat, Samsara, what is its nature? Khanda. Khanda means fragmented, broken up, limited. Broken up by time-space experience. वैसे I have not changed in last 15 years, स्वामी जी. क्या मजाक करते हो? 15 साल पहले स्वामी जी आपके बाल थे, अब नो मोर है. 15 साल पहले आपकी काली दाढ़ी थी, अभी सफेद है. Now it is white. Change is the changeless law, and nobody can deny it of this projected reality. Anything that changes is limited by that time, by that space, by that experience. Therefore, it is khanda. Akhanda, that which is indivisible. That conscious existential principle alone is indivisible. That which is beyond time. When was time created? When was Bhagavan created? No. Bhagavan was the one who created when, meaning time. He is timeless, beyond time. We chant that shloka, right? That mantra. Namaste astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Trambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagni Kalaya Kalagni Rudraya Neelakanthaya Mrityunjayaya. He is Kala Swarupa and Kalatita also. He is beyond that time. Therefore, Akhanda. Now going into understanding what is Ananda. Like how Divya put in picture, she said scaling up. There is this comparative analysis, and with that comparative it is scaled. So in the Taittiriya Upanishad it says, Yuvat syat sadhu yuvadhyayakaha ashishto dridishto balishtaha tasyayam prithvi sarva vityasya purna syat sa eko manusha anandaha. This is called one unit of Ananda, which is human Ananda. And how is this human? Yuvat syat sadhu yuvadhyayakaha. He is youthful. First. Second, sadhu, a very noble-hearted one. And asishto dridishto balishtaha. He is very rugged, robust, with all finesse. So supposing he has a wife, few children, and is sitting on a gold mine, he's minting money, he has the entire earth to be ruled, and he is the emperor. He is the samrat of everything. Such individual, if he has been blessed by Bhagavan for longevity also. Now imagine such individual, his Ananda is one Ananda, one unit of Ananda. Then it goes 100 times this Manushya Ananda is Manushya Gandharva Ananda. There is a subcategory in the above world called Manushya Gandharva. Their Ananda is 100x. If human Ananda is x, they are 100x. Now this Manushya Gandharva Ananda, 100 times this is Deva Gandharva. 100 times that Deva Gandharva is Pitruloka Ananda. 100 times that Pitruloka Ananda. No, this is not how it actually works, okay? This is just figure of speech. Just so that we can, all of these Anandas put together. He is saying in this next shloka, 58th shloka, tasyānandalavāśritāḥ, completely dependent on love. Love ashritaha. No, that word lava ashritaha doesn't mean love. Lava in Sanskrit means a fragment of it, a small tiny weeny percentage of it. All of these Anandas, starting from Manushya Ananda to Brahmananda, Brahmaji's Ananda, all put together is just a fragment of this Ananda experience. Experience, we would say it is the experience experienced in the experiencer Triputi. I said it is the understanding of this Ananda. How does this understanding reflect in our life? This is a very key point. Because we think that this fellow becomes ecstatic, like as though he is high on something and jumping up and down like a lunatic. No, there is no such lunacy in this experience or in this understanding. The understanding that settles in is, I run after everything thinking, assuming that it gives me sukha. Nothing from the outside is comparable to this understanding. Nothing beats this. And it is not something that I can lose or miss. It has always been there. I have not recognized it. Now that I have recognized it, it shall continue to exist. That understanding is incomparable. Therefore, I do not run after anything. Therefore, there is no fear or anxiety of losing out on anything either. See, why do we get all the ornaments from all the way from India? Festivals, functions, events. Head to toe. And you have kept it fresh, meaning every 5 years once new designs. You are in with the trend. Where do you keep all of it? In the locker. How often do you use it? Once or twice a year. What is the Ananda? What is the sense of security? है इतना understanding जो है. Right? Or is it that every week you have a 1 hour session in the bank, you go to the bank and open your locker, spread it all out on that table, and then எவ்வளோ இருக்கு, ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ, ಅಯ್ಯಯ್ಯೋ, ಇದು ಇದೆ, ಅದು ಇದೆ, ಇದು ಇದೆ. All of these are there. No, you seldom go to even check it. How many times has it not happened that you have gone to the locker and you're sieving through all the things that you want, and then you see something and say, Acha, ye bhi hai. You've even forgotten that it exists. No, I have never been to a locker. I have never used a locker system. I don't know the experience. I'm just guessing. A fair guesstimate. Has it happened or not that you find something that you even forgot that it existed with you? A sense of security. Why that? Otherwise, if it is there, the fear, the anxiety that it will be snatched away from me. Now, this Ananda nobody can snatch. Vyaye krite vardhata eva nityam. The more I give, the more it keeps oozing out. That which people, things, places, time, experiences bring, all of this culminating into one amount of Ananda, this is infinity times which is constantly beaming forth. akhaṇḍānandarūpasya tasyānandalavāśritāḥ, from Brahmādi Pipilikādi Paryantam, from Brahmaji, the creator, all the way to the tiniest organism. And they are all in comparative Tarathamyena. Taratamya in the comparisons of superlative degrees. This is better than, this is greater than, that is greater than this. All of these Ananda culminating to one amount is still just one tiny fragment of that Atmananda. bhavantyānandino'khilāḥ. Understanding this and abiding in it, those who do, they experience their Atma Ananda in this culmination of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana process. We will continue with 59th and 60th in the next week's class. And we still continue with the same yattadbrahmetyavadhārayet assertion. So come prepared. Oh, you don't have to prepare. We have to come prepared. Come and listen. If you have any questions, if you have any doubts, please post them on the group and one of us will answer it. Let us conclude. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaśyid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om purnamadah purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate, purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavasishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.